The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Art Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Arts Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Digati, and with me today is Craig Ahrens and David Espinosa, horror movie makers. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Gentlemen, tell us a little bit about, I don't know who would like to start. I'd love to learn how you got into the movie business, because it's a very glamorous thing for those of us that are not in the movie business.
Good, Greg. I'm going to get you, Espinosa.
There you go. We like a little spite in with our interviews. It always spikes.
I came into the business, Rocky, late in life. I mean, any later, I would have been dead. And a friend of mine that I had known for years is an actor. And I didn't realize, though, is that he had an acting studio in Santa Monica. And this was back at the end of 2011. And he invited me to his acting studio. So I thought it'd be kind of fun. I live in Orange County, so to speak. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go up and watch actors do their thing, so to speak. And I enjoyed it. It was entertaining watching them do scenes and whatnot. Well, he called me the next day and asked me, what did I think? I said, yeah, I enjoyed watching it. Anyhow, long story short, he had me commit to doing this for 90 days. And it was very awkward, Rocky. You could take anybody you know, any stiff person that you know, throw them into an acting class. That would have been me. So I worked really hard. I mean, my goal wasn't to be a good actor or a great actor. I just didn't want to suck. I didn't want to be like that guy, like on the dodgeball team, like, okay, we'll take Craig, right? So I wanted to be at least, kind of like, oh, that guy's my scene partner, that old ass guy. So I just want to at least, not break the china. And so that's how it all started. And a mutual friend of David and myself, Todd Chase, introduced David and me together. I had done a couple of short films, and I really wanted to go more on that side of the business with my background. That seemed to be a little bit better fit. And then I met David, and it was like, oh my gosh, this was a God thing, because David had been in the business for a long period of time, graduate of UCLA School of Drama. And he is a writer, director. He has written screenplays, and that was ideal for what I was looking to accomplish. And we just clicked. It's just one of those things that we just clicked. And 4 films later, here we are on your show.
Now, what did you do before you got into the acting class and got into the movie biz?
I was a mortgage banker for years, a single dad raising 3 kids and mortgage banking. And then 2007 came, that wiped out most all of us in mortgage banking. And so there I was, kind of semi-retired, whatever you want to call it, just nothing, no mortgage banking replacement, if you will. So that was my career for 25 years.
That's amazing. And David, you haven't always been in the movie business, have you?
No. I off and on, as Craig said, I graduated from UCLA, but I was doing theater, doing a lot of theater, my own stuff. I was very pleased about that, being paid to direct my own work. But I couldn't earn a living and I couldn't support a family. And next thing I know, I'm in law school.
Oh, wow. That's a leap.
Yeah. So I'm in law school at Santa Clara, and it was all good. I did a television series when I was in my first year, and that was kind of strange because I'm walking across campus and people are yelling at me, "Hey, Fortune Dad, we saw you on the TV." I mean, it's weird. It's kind of awkward, right, in law school. But I've always wanted this business off and on, and I've gotten in and out at times. But I was very fortunate, as Craig said, well. It was a God thing. I was blessed to have met Craig on a different film. I was involved with a production, an indie production, a feature, and they were into it for a year. It was not going anywhere really that I felt comfortable with. And this guy, Todd Chess, kept telling me, "You got to meet Craig. You got to meet Craig." And I mean, he kept on me. This was like for a couple of months. Finally,
Wow.
one day, yeah,
He
on
wore
set,
you
I said,
down.
"Give me the phone. What's his number?" So I called Craig, and we saw the same path. We saw the same things, and we were able to communicate straightforward with each other without the baloney, and here we are.
And
So
that's a town full of baloney. If the rest of us, it's all about the baloney.
hey, let me tell you, and we're not
I
making
like
sandwiches
bologna.
either. Yeah, you like baloney.
Yeah.
Now, even
I've
though
always
you
liked
didn't,
bologna.
well, I think you're going to have to. If you're going to have to be a success in Hollywood, you're going to have to really love baloney.
Well,
But
that's interesting. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's. I was going to ask a little bit more about how much did movies have a big impact on you, like before you got into the business side of that? Have you always been movie fans and always had the bug and always been fascinated with Hollywood and that kind of thing?
I have,
100%, both of us. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, since a kid. I went every
Mhm.
Saturday. I collected pop bottles, mowed lawns, picked up dog doo doo, whatever it took to get the money. My brother and I would be at the theater Saturday morning, spend all day there watching 3 features and who knows,
Mhm.
half dozen cartoons. Yeah.
And was there a particular movie that when you look back now, you almost we're going to talk a little bit about all of your movies, but just for the folks that are listening, you can tune into tubitv.com and see any of these films for free. And the newest would be Demon Fighter. We have The Evil Down the Street, Love in Quarantine, and The Crumbs. And most are horror, and most have a great amount of humor in them, which is terrific, because I think you got to kind of mix that up a little bit. I've always enjoyed the funny, but I did see Demon Fighter, and I definitely felt that there was an air, a respect and homage, if you will, to other movies that have gone in the past of the same genre, like it, and the it's a kung fu horror movie, I guess. So I'm wondering, were you influenced by movies, both horror and other genres? What were the movies that made big impressions on you as kids?
Frankenstein scared the crap out of me,
Yeah.
straight up, as a kid in
Straight
the
up.
theater. And I grew up watching Bruce Lee.
Oh,
I think
sure.
we both did, right, Craig? The same
Oh,
films,
yeah.
just
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's interesting, David and myself, that we were comparing notes early on. A couple of our favorite movies, Frankenstein, Wizard of Oz, and from a director standpoint, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
mhm.
Amazing. I'm
and
so
and David, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm so disappointed that Universal Studios in Florida removed that exhibit. They had a fantastic exhibit
Ah,
that showed you shot by shot, and like the 13 camera shot for the shower scene in Psycho. They literally took you through that step by step, and you watched the cameras work. So you could see the true genius involved in what he did, and they
ah.
removed it. And I'm mad because I don't really care about the wizard kid. I really wanted to keep the Hitchcock exhibit.
no, you're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Hitchcock was amazing. His
Amazing.
ability to foresee, I'm sure you probably heard of the rope, his
Yes.
film. Amazing film. Great actors in it. They rehearsed it like a play, walked it right through. I love that film for its technical abilities, what he did. But Hitchcock had the ability to see something and show you it. He could see it in his head and he could show you it. And I think for me, it's not about the conversation. It's not about talking. It's about showing. That's what I love about Hitchcock. He showed you.
He really, and I think he took the ordinary and made it terrifying.
Yes.
Because how many of
Oh,
us
yeah.
have been sitting on a park bench and we don't even look twice if we see a couple of pigeons? You see that movie, you look twice now.
Well, interesting you say that. Craig wrote the film, The Evil Down the Street. The initial film script was written, and was working with some people, and they took it and rewrote it. And they put all this gag stuff, the crawling, on the ceiling, and the twisted head, and all that other baloney stuff. And when I met Craig and he showed me the script, I read it. I said, "This is horrifying without all that crap. Let's take all that out." So we struck all that stuff out and made it as real as what the actual events were. And I
Mhm.
thought that was scarier because, I mean, if I saw my mother dancing in the corner to some weird thing in the middle of the night, that freaked me out.
Me too.
I wouldn't know
Yeah.
what to do. So, yeah, exactly right, to your point. So,
Well,
Well, and
in
if
many
I could,
sure.
Rocky, just as an aside, when David read the script, he asked, he made a lot of suggestions, and if I had any issues with him, and including that, I said absolutely not. And it went so much, I got tired and just kept saying thank you. I said, you have to be down here as co-writer because because with his background, I mean, the more that he was contributing and writing, you can't, you just can't keep sending thank you notes. And then along the way, right, and there's a character in there, Father Bob. I said, hey, David, would you like to play Father Bob? He goes, yeah, I'd love to. And then the big thing was, I said, well, how would you feel about directing this? He goes, yeah, I'd love to. So again, when this was a God thing, it's pretty obvious because the areas that aren't really my strength or my passion per se, they are with David. And you can't fake the funk if somebody has, you know, uh, education and background in that area. And Mickey, like myself, said, "Oh no, no, I think I'll take a swing at directing this." That would have been just ridiculous.
but that's what makes us work so well because we are so compatible. His end and what he does is intrinsically as important as any other part. I myself, as an artist, the caterers are as equally as important as the actors. I
Mm-hmm.
feel strong about that on set, and I think every aspect. This isn't one totalitarian regime where one person ultimately does everything. No, this is a composite of many talents and skills and attitudes and opinions and emotions and people come together to create one thing, and that's what's so awesome for me is when I watch that happen from imagination, from paper to the actual thing, and when you see it done, you're like, whoa, that was shitty, but we got it done.
Well, there's an artistry to creation is when you take imagination and turn it into creation. That's art. It
Yes,
really is, and it's something that you
yes.
can share. Something I wanted to touch back on, and I've always felt like that. I've enjoyed the horror genre, and I've seen a lot of films from soup to nuts, and I have some of my personal favorites, and a lot of them classic. But one of the things I think that is interesting. Two things that are 2 points. One is I think what you don't see is scarier than what you do because your mind fills in the blank.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if anybody else's mind is like the twisted thing between my ears, what I'm
Right.
going to come up with, what I think is happening, is going to be 10 times worse than anything you could show me on screen. And it's a
Yes.
great device. And the other is inspired by true events. And there's more than a couple of your stories that lead off with that. And I'd just love to hear how you went from hearing about the true events and how they became movies.
Well, the first one we did, Evil Down the Street, like David mentioned, I had, let's say, a working script or a draft would probably be more appropriate. But the family in question, I had known for years. And so, from that standpoint, it always struck me that if there is one with a story like this, there has to be others that they can relate to it. And the family never wanted any notoriety. So it wasn't one of these things like Amityville Horror that, we're going to go
Right.
ahead and bastardize it. That was very far from it. So the passion or the interest was to take their story and just get it out there. And like what David said yourself, that the story itself was more horrific than seeing head spinning around or things along those lines. So, and I think David did a good job allowing the audience having room to breathe, like what you're suggesting, Rocky, where they can maybe fill in some of those blanks so we didn't have to show everything going on.
I think it's always frightening when you kind of you have to assume what's happening, and I think it's always worse. At least with me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little twisted,
Well,
so it gets it's always a little
Yeah.
bit worse.
well,
But
there's
the
a bit of another issue too involved in exploitation. We talk about sexploitation. I think, sangria exploitation, right? Blood exploitation. We do the same thing, chop movies. For the sake of just killing people, some guy running around for whatever reason, he's out of his mind and he's got an axe or a saw or whatever the hell it is, and he's chopping everybody up and everybody's trying to get away. All right, I get the plot, but that's all about blood and guts. And
Mm-hmm.
just to show that for the sake of showing blood and guts, that's so voyeuristic that for me it borders on a little bit of a problem. But that's me. Now, everybody has their own opinion as to what they think. I, like you, would much rather see the suggestion. In the Crumbs, we have a character who carries a huge wooden bat. Okay, and this is a big guy, like pushing 300 pounds, 6'7",
Mm-hmm.
big man. And he smacks a guy in the head with this thing. And we mask it off, of course, and all the blood goes against the wall. And that's what you see, the spatter on the wall. You don't see him crushing, the skull. And we don't need to see it.
right,
We know what happened. We know there's brains and pieces of skull and hair and blood and
Mm-hmm.
every other thing all tangled up and not. See, like you, that's where my head goes. Okay. So, I have issues with those for the sake of just doing that. Yeah.
well, I remember watching the serious gore movie, like the Herschel Lewis type stuff, Herschel Gordon
Mm-hmm.
Lewis stuff. And that was, very popular, especially when I was a teenager. It kind of got a bit of a renaissance before the Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and all that came out. It was like everybody was going back old school. And I didn't find it scary. Okay, Mr. Ramsey's was really creepy, but other than that, I didn't find the actual gore frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, you knew it was pretend and everything, but when you don't see it, I think, you kind of get that going on. And a lot of horror movies do have some truth or some basis in either accepted legend or real
Mm-hmm.
events. The Exorcist was based on a case out of Georgetown. The Amityville Horror. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Paranormal Activity was, and I think
No.
that's one of the most brilliant money-making movies I've ever
Well,
seen on concept
Poltergeist
alone.
was too. From what I
Oh,
understand,
really?
Poltergeist was based on an actual event. And I was like, what?
Yeah, they
When
didn't
I
move
when
the
I first
bodies.
read on that, I was like, that's pretty amazing. I thought that was a pretty well done film at its time.
Yeah.
I loved the use of the family, normal the little girl,
Oh, yeah.
everything about it. The subsequent ones, the sequels, I wasn't all that impressed with those.
Mm-hmm.
But that happens. What are you gonna do?
I think in the when you have budgets, and I mean everything's got a budget. Even my podcast has a budget, and it's zero, and it shows. But
That's why we're here.
no free beer tonight. That's it.
Hey,
Um, but
hey,
when you're talking about maximizing what creativity on a budget, because like I said, everything, even if it's a James Cameron movie, even he has a budget. It's insane, but he has a budget.
Right.
So what are the challenges when you're making movies on a budget? On in any kind of, I mean, versus what you want to do versus what you can do.
Hmm. Well, that's a good question. And
I'm thinking about because Craig and we work on those matters together
Right.
and
yeah.
through scheduling, through organizing, making certain that everything is exactly what we want. We have exact shoot food, how many actors we have, what this cost is going to be daily. We're very, very tight with our budgets. We've
Right.
come always on or under budget and
Excellent.
on
Right.
time or under time. And for us, it's really the biggest challenge for me and Craig, I think, is keeping everybody else pretty much on that schedule.
Right.
We're pretty good at it because we give it to them in advance. The first day of shooting, everybody knows exactly what they're doing. Everybody. And that to us, we've always known was the key to what this business is about. Art is art. But if you don't know how to blend your paint and you don't know, the proper way to light something, it doesn't matter how much paint you put on that canvas. It's still going to be just a canvas full of paint. And we
Right.
know that. So we pay particular attention to the people we work with. We've been blessed with working with great technicians,
Right.
awesome actors, people who devoted themselves to everything we were doing. And the challenge, of course, for Craig and I again is continuing on this basis. We are not, we're bumping up our game. We want to go up a couple of steps here. We want to get A-listers in our films. We think we have a track record that's running pretty good. We know that who we are and what our films are. We don't fool ourselves. We're grown men and we've been at this a while. But at the same time, hey, who's to tell me no? I'll not
That's
have it. Neither will Craig. And so, we're going to go forward, see what happens until I drop dead. What the hell, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
yeah, well, they say you only live once. So speaking of like, promotion and things like the internet, social media, YouTube, it used to be, I mean, and my mom is 94 years old and she is a big movie maven. And I
All
was
right.
raised with an appreciation of the silver screen, from jump, and probably the only kid in the second grade who had a crush on Errol Flynn. But anyway, so so I recognized the magic of movies very early on and enjoyed that with her and share that with her still to this day. She always used to tell me stories like I think the one that sticks in my mind to my point is like Lana Turner in a drugstore sipping a soda
Yeah.
and someone walks by and goes, wow, we need to put you in a movie. And then,
Yeah.
of course, there were so many performers that started out as on Broadway, and like, when a lot of people a little younger than myself saw, they were so surprised when the great Jerry Orbach voiced both singing and acting Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast. And everybody's like, wow, he can sing. I said, there was a time they all had to sing. Everybody sang, everybody danced because they came out of Broadway. You get your B. Arthurs, you get your Jerry Orbachs, you get your Hal Lindens. These are people who even did like, I saw a great documentary called Bathtubs Over Broadway, highly recommend, that talked about, even these industrial musicals. So these were performers that had to really pay dues. And has the internet changed how people are discovered and how movies are discovered? Is it better? Is it worse?
Hmm. I would say back then the actors were just more rounded. I mean, I'll lay it myself. That's when we were first saying this. I thought, don't dance. I certainly don't sing, and I play in a really small box.
Right.
David, what do you think about that? I mean,
well, there's a very distinct difference between the two times. Most of those, as you were referring to, were studio trained people, whether they're West Coast or on Broadway. If they were over here, they were under contract and they were studio trained, dancing, singing, acting, even modeling. I mean, they were doing everything, photographs, the whole nine yards. And they didn't have to promote themselves. They were under contract, were promoted, and lent out vis-a-vis other studios all over the place, traded and whatnot. Lent. Right now, because of the situation with mass media and it's so prevalent, everybody's a star. Get on TikTok, boom, there you go. So anybody and everybody can draw attention to themselves regardless of what they do, how ridiculous or how great. And the more you do it, even ridiculous, the more attention you get. Remember the guy that used to just passed away? I forgot his name. I apologize for that because I liked him. Smashing Watermelons.
Oh, Gallagher.
Yeah. Gallagher, thank you. Crazy stuff, right?
Clever, very clever comedian, though. If you listen to his stuff, that's a guy who loved words. Yes.
Exactly right. Very clever comedian. And so when we look at, I think the media now, there's this self-promotion that is so dominant, so prevalent everywhere that everybody can set up cameras. I can't tell you how many when I was auditioning, self-tape, I do my own, I just set up an environment, and do it. That easy. So I thought that right now there's a greater opportunity on one end because you have a greater opportunity to get seen. On the other end, because there's so many people doing it, the opportunity diminishes with the masses. So we're right back where you were. The cattle call goes on. Everybody gets in the line. Where's your headshot?
Okay. Right. And now it's, who's on TikTok? TikTok, I call it.
Exactly right. So, as it changes, it doesn't, right?
And I've said the same, like about the music industry. Years ago, you'd see people, bands that would scrape up all their originals. They'd try to bust their butts to get into a recording studio to get enough pennies together to get a couple of songs on a demo. And you got copies and you made tapes and you went out and you sent it to this A&R guy or whatever. And it just went on. And now it's like, you'll see somebody out of nowhere play something amazing on the ukulele for some reason. A lot of ukulele players out there, and they get 1 million followers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to the ukulele. I'm just saying it's an unusual instrument that didn't really have a lot of talking points up until fairly recently, unless you were Don Ho, and nobody's.
Hey, all right, brother, huh? Play the right kind, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, So if somebody was trying to get into making independent films, what advice would you give them?
Stay out. No, it's kind of like what you said and David said, that just because you have an iPhone doesn't make that you're a filmmaker. So
I don't think a lot of people realize what's involved in really making a film. Some do, I'm sure, but I'm saying in the common populace, the amount of time 5 minutes of screen time takes to make. I don't think people are aware of that.
If you want to make a movie, first thing you need to do besides getting a script that's worth shooting, get organized. Before you get all excited with your camera, and you start finding places and getting costumes and talking people into working for free, get organized. Take your script apart. Understand what you got. Try to find an order in which you can shoot your script so you're not duplicating the same environments. So you go there once and you shoot all scenes that need to be there. Misusing actors. So you're not bringing them on one day and then 2 days later again and then 5 days later again. No, bring them on, shoot them all their scenes, get it done. Organize, and feed everybody and pay people. Don't ask people to come and clap their hands for you while you paint your canvas.
Right.
Ask them to show up and participate and respect their time and pay them. No matter what it is, pay them. That is so important, and pay them immediately, not on the back. Oh, when I make $1 million and I'm in Hollywood, you're going to come and it's going to be great. And that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Pay them.
I think a lot of people, myself included, before I actually saw it done, I think your mind assumes that movies are shot in order. So, we picture it being made as we're learning the story in that order. And that's almost never the case. No, it's crazy. And like I said, how much 5 minutes on screen takes to create. I think, it doesn't
That's
take
right.
5 minutes.
That could be
It
what,
could
a
take.
couple days,
I
easy.
was gonna say, yeah, I could see where it could take all day, if not a couple of days, like what David is saying. And if I could, Rocky, that before we shoot any film, David spends a ton of time on the front end. Let's say the game plan, the shot list, and everything before we ever show up day one on set. And in addition to this, you're talking about budget. Well, you better know what the cost of your film is going to be. And then importantly, when you are done shooting your film, what are you going to do with it now? You have a film. What are you going to do with it? Are you just going to have a very expensive home video you bring out for the holidays? Or is it going to be somewhere like what you're saying, Tubi TV, et cetera, that friends and family and hopefully fans of your creation are able to go and watch the films that you've made?
Well, I'm a cable cutter. And so Tubi, Freevee, and all these other types of apps, very important to me. And one of the things I
Yes.
noticed immediately about Tubi, this was even before we had a chance to speak and before I learned about you guys, is that a lot of these apps that offer free viewing have a lot of independent film.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's a great
Yes.
repository if you're looking to discover new horror, any new film in your chosen genre of choice, and whatever you'd like to watch. Is that the new frontier for indie film?
Well,
absolutely.
go ahead, David. I was
No,
going
you
to
first.
say yes, but also like with Tubi, I watched last night a film. What was the name of it? I think it's called Cold Pursuit with Liam Neeson. So it's, you can say it's an indie film, but a lot of people view an indie film that you don't have named stars necessarily.
Oh
Well, certainly
no.
there's Liam Neeson.
Sure.
Freebie is the offshoot of IMDb TV, and the same idea there that you have independent films. You have to pass their QC, so it's not like everybody and their brother is going to be
Right.
on those platforms. But and I think I can speak for David too. I love Tubi TV. You have ad breaks, allows you to get a snack or go to the bathroom, but they're not like every 2 minutes. So it's a very friendly, free platform, like what you're saying, Rocky.
Well, I saw movies that everybody would have recognized that maybe had theater run, but I loved the idea that I could discover new film and I could
Yeah.
maybe see stuff that was a little bit out of what's being pushed in the mainstream, and so that I could, you know what, I'm the person who wants to go to the BYOB restaurant that's around the corner and down the alley rather than
Mhm.
the wait in line for the big main, one on the main street, because that's how you
Yeah.
get better food and a more interesting experience. And I find that in film, that's also similarly the case. I want to try flavors I've never tried before. I want to see actors I've never seen before. I want to,
Hmm.
enjoy a story that's new to me. I don't want the fifth sequel of the, whatever they're trying to sell me. And I think I was overjoyed when I was looking. I was like, wow, there's a lot of really cool independent stuff here. And I always thought independent film was not like a step down or anything. I always thought independent film was like a new frontier.
Hmm.
Well, interesting your analysis because what it's doing is it's equalizing the playing field a little bit here for
Hmm.
independent filmmakers. It's putting us on board side by side with Liam Neeson, with other major A actors and major studio work. So it's saying, hey, look, in our platform, we think that this Paramount picture or whatever, Columbia, whoever, TriStar, is just as good as CRA Entertainment.
Hmm.
Bam.
And
And that's what
let
we
folks
feel
know
good
what's
about.
about CRA. That's Creative Renegade Artists, correct?
Correct.
And folks can go
Yes.
to craentertainment.biz. That's also going to be a clickable link in the podcast description so they can check out a little bit more of your work. But I didn't mean to interrupt. You were saying.
No, that's basically it. That I thought it was a very equalizing platform. It allows all of filmmakers, period. If you pass their QC, as Craig said, which is not really that difficult, but not that easy, then they're going to put you right up there with major players.
Right.
And when we see our posters in line with these others, that's a good feeling. You know,
Yeah.
that's a good feeling because we know there's something there. And like I said, we're realists about what we do. So we don't pretend about what we're doing. We don't do this for our egos. We have struck our own ideas after we both agreed to do it and
Right.
said, yes, this is it. And then go, you know what? Maybe that's not such a good idea. And here's why.
It always
It
comes
doesn't
down to
matter.
logistics.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not about us. It's about the project.
Right.
It's about
Yeah.
getting this thing out there, and I think that's what makes Craig and I work so well together.
And I'm gonna ask, so what's an idea that you had that you said, nah? What doesn't make it into the
Oh,
film?
what was that? We've had a few. We've
We've
had a
had a
few.
few. Well, I'll give you one in particular right now that we actually changed. Demon Fighter. When I wrote Demon Fighter, I originally wrote it with me in mind as the lead. And we both looked at the script, we liked it, and we said, yeah, yeah, this is it, let's get him. And then one day it occurred to me, no one wants to see my old ass doing that. They want to see some young guy doing this, And I told Craig, I said, hey man, this isn't gonna work. I said, we need to change this. Here's why. And we talked about it, we agreed, I rewrote the script. And we brought John Azuna in. He is a martial artist action actor, as you're probably aware. He's
Yes.
in The Matrix, Venom. He's in a couple different films. He's doing some now. We had a good time working with him. His
Very
character
compelling
evolved.
performance.
Yes, we had a good time with him. So, and there you go. So again, it's not us, and it's what we're doing. And I'm so glad about that because if I was maybe 40 years younger, I might have been tripping over my own ego or my hat. Who knows? And thank God, God knows when your place is and where it's at. And here I am.
Well,
Amen.
it was a lot of fun to watch because of the action. I thought the action was kind of an interesting kick to it, pun intended. So what's next? What's the next project? What can you tell us?
We have a couple scripts that are completed that we're shopping, and one that we're in the process of developing. We constantly are looking towards the future with what we want to do, but we're also driven on three levels. Our first goal is to entertain our audience, no matter what. Our second goal is hopefully to inform them. And our third goal, if they've had some informative insight there, is to enlighten them. If we don't do the last two, that's fine. If all we do is entertain them. So, with that in mind, we're driven towards not necessarily grave social issues, but extreme social issues. And we like to
Mhm.
exploit those types of things: family, love, God, hate, discrimination, prejudice, but in a way in which we can present a story. Story is what's important. The
Right.
message is secondary to story. And I know a lot of people don't get that. They think the message is what's important. God save the queen. No, that's not it. Okay, this story is about a bold knight, and by the way, he saves the queen. Okay, so CRA is driven with that in mind. We're very faith oriented in that regard, but we're not didactic. I'll never tell anybody what to believe, what to think. Neither will
Mhm.
Craig. But we certainly push our plots. We have one right now that we're really excited about, and I'll just give you a hint as to what it
Okay.
involves. It involves, unfortunately, organ harvesting and human trafficking at the border.
It's a
There's a
very,
lot of
very
that
important issue. Yes.
and rampant throughout the world on an
Yeah.
involuntary and a voluntary basis. It's sad, but it's true. And I don't know if you've caught the news in the last few days, but they just arrested some four illegals for having a truckload of dead people in it, 56 bodies, something like that. And it's a real thing. But so you see, nobody wants to sit there and talk about that.
Right.
But a good story that maybe involves that somehow, okay, and we're going to
Mhm.
resurrect Father Michael from Demon Fighter into that. because we like his character. We like his character, so we're resurrecting that character. But and we have a couple other things. One called Preacher, a horrendous film. It's a bit gory. It's probably the goriest thing I've written, and I'm not a gory guy, so it's pretty gory. And another film that we really feel comfortable about as well. Comfortable is a weird word. Excited about, but it's a two piece, and it's called Captives. And so we're continuously working, and right now we're in the process of promoting those projects. And fortunately for me, that was easy to say. I have Craig constantly following up on all of this stuff, making certain that I'm always doing what I need to do, and that we're working towards a common goal. So
and vice versa.
Right. That's what we're working on.
Your social conscience is very apparent in the films, and like you said, through the story, which is good, the social construct comes through, because you've got your classic stuff, you've got your the good versus evil is I think the ultimate of most horror movies, really.
Sure.
And some twists and turns. We'll just leave it at that one might not necessarily expect, and I'm talking about the end of Demon Fighter. And I think that people will enjoy, taking that journey with you. And so, folks, you can go to tubitv.com, and all of your films are there, including that's Demon Fighter, The Evil Down the Street, The Crumbs, Love in Quarantine. Just a quick note on that. Not a traditional horror movie.
No, it's a dramedy. It's a comedy, and it takes place right now as to what happened with COVID and all the quarantine and all this business, etc. A romantic comedy, but just real quickly, these are two people who have been married for over 20 years, a biracial couple, who, after now being quarantined, find those little idiosyncrasies are causing them to murder each other, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, I'm single now, but I was coupled during quarantine. I get it. I totally get it.
That's what it was. We think it's funny. It's good. It's a biracial couple. And of course, they're together, then they come apart, and we bring them back together. Most romantic comedies, they're apart and they overcome obstacles to come together. But we're already together. But we like it. The actors are really good. Jeannie Young.
Can they stay together?
Yeah, exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly. Staying together.
And it's so there's lots of fun to be had on tubitv.com, and you can look up those movies, though it'll also be a clickable link in the description, and go to craentertainment.biz. And any final words for us, gentlemen?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
it's
we
been
love
wonderful.
You guys.
Absolutely. Oh, and something else I love, and we were talking about this beforehand, and I want to make sure I say it on air. I love that your films have the funny in them. You're both obviously gentlemen with great senses of humor. It truly comes out in the work, because life is funny.
Yes.
Life is funny. You can't take it serious. You'll end up having a heart attack.
This is true. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. And just remember, stay kooky out there.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.